Welcome to Fortress of Faith with Tom Wallace, calling North America to repentance and revival.
Well, we're back once again at the corner of truth and courage. This is Tom Wallace. Yesterday, I began part one on the revival that lasted 3 years. And if you missed it, and if you miss any of our broadcasts, you can always re-listen or listen to other of our programs and shows at fortressoffaith.com. That's fortressoffaith.com. And we've got, my goodness, thousands of articles on our website available there for you to study some of our research that's there and information about our ministry. And by the way, too, pastors, if you're ever interested in having me come and speak at your church or conference or at a college or whatever there, give me a call or, our contact details there on the website. Reach out to us there. We'd be glad to do that. We've got some openings for this year. And we're also on YouTube now. We have a YouTube channel, and we're on Spotify as well. So all that information is there. And so yesterday we started part one on the revival that lasted 3 years. We're going to get into part two today. And I'm going to be reading some from either the book, The Lewis Awakening, or I'll be reading from a transcript of Duncan Campbell actually telling you, what better eyewitness account of what God did on the Hebrides Islands back in 1949. He originally went there to speak for 10 days. The revival was scheduled, or they would say scheduled, for 10 days. And he gets into the details. I'm not going to read all the details there because, some of it's not necessary and really impactful to the story that I want to touch. But he was planning to be in a conference on the island of Skye, which is the neighboring island. And the church in Barvas on Lewis Island had made an invitation for him to come to Lewis Island. Well, he was already scheduled somewhere. And so he wrote a letter back to them saying that, it's not possible. I'm already scheduled. I'll remark on some of that here in a minute. But it turns out that the meeting on Skye got canceled because of a double booking that the hotel had done with another group. And so the church meeting, the whatever religious meeting that he was going to be speaking at was canceled. And so it turned out that he could be there on Lewis Island after all. And so a 10-day meeting was planned, and he arrives, and revival is about to break out. And a revival that lasted for 3 years. Now, I've heard of revivals here in America where an evangelist was booked to be at a place and the moving of God breaks out, and he's there a second week, and a third week, and a fourth week. In North Carolina, not too long ago, I think a tent revival lasted for almost 3 months. And I got to attend it. I went, and it was a great meeting and good preaching. And there were a lot of results. A lot of people were coming forward and getting saved. And the preacher did a good job. He's a good preacher, young man, and an anointing on him. But that revival in North Carolina was nothing like what you're going to hear of what happened on Lewis Island. And because it's modern, it started in 1949. Duncan Campbell was giving a testimony of this, and it was recorded. He was in Canada preaching. This is after the revival. And he there's an audio recording. You can listen to it, and I'm going to be reading somewhat from the transcript of that. I'd love to play it for you. I've tuned my ear in to understand the Scottish brogue. I've heard it so many times. But it's hard to do that on the radio if you're not used to the accent. And so I'm going to read some of the stuff, and some of the stuff I'm just going to tell you what had occurred. So, as I said yesterday, and we had to close on this, that the revival began with two older ladies, Peggy and Christine Smith. One was 84, one was 82 years of age. Christine was blind. Peggy was doubled over with arthritis. They were housebound. They really couldn't make it out to the services. And so every week, their pastor, Brother Mackay, or McKay is how we would say it, but Brother Mackay would come and visit them. And this is how things went. And I'll just kind of, I'm not going to read it. I'm going to tell it to you the way I've read this so many times. And so here they're being visited by their pastor, and Peggy says this, Brother Mackay, I know you're a God, and forgive me, I can't help it. I break into this not Southern, but this accent from Scotland. It's because I'm just listening in my mind to him telling this. He said, I know you're a God-fearing man, and you seek revival. You've tried special speakers, missionaries, evangelists. Have you considered trying God? Now, as I tell these stories, you're going to chuckle at Peggy. She's a character. She just really is bold, and she will just say it how it is. And then she shares with her pastor their burden. My sister and I were so burdened for revival that we're praying on Tuesdays and Fridays from 10 at night till 4 o'clock in the morning, and we're waiting on God for revival. Now, I don't know why they picked those days, Tuesdays and Fridays, why they picked the times from 10 o'clock till 4 in the morning. I don't know. Maybe they had to milk the cows. I don't know. But this is what they did. And Brother Mackay, instead of being rebuked and upset, he knew that these were God-fearing women. And so he said something to them that I think is quite remarkable. He said, well, if you will do this, you keep doing this, I'll assemble the men in the church, and we will pray on those same days at the same times in the barn on Tuesdays and Fridays. And this they did for a number of weeks. And Peggy shared that she kind of had a vision that the church would be filled and there would be a certain speaker in the church, and it was Duncan Campbell, and thus an invitation was written to him. And again, back to the beginning of our story, he gets a reply from Duncan Campbell, I can't come, I'm already engaged in another meeting. And then Peggy told him, said this, believe me, he's going to come. He's going to be here. We need to be ready. And so, now how she, was so affirmed with this, I don't know. But she had a communication with God that was on a different level than most of us. So now I want to go to the part of the story where the men are praying in the barn. And as they're praying in the barn, they do this for a number of weeks. And there was a young man, we don't know his name right away, but I've done a lot of research on this, and I've come to find the name of the boy. His name is Donald. We'll get back to a little bit more about him later. But they're praying, and they're waiting on God for revival. And they're doing this on Tuesday nights and Thursday and Fridays from 10 at night till 4 o'clock in the morning. And Donald stood up after being on his knees and with the men in prayer for these times. And he said in the Gaelic tongue. Now, most of the time that they're speaking, they're actually speaking in Gaelic, because Gaelic is pretty much the main language of the people on the island. But of course, all of them can speak English as well with their deep Scottish brogue. But Donald stands up and he says, "This is humbug." Now, quite honestly, I never thought anyone ever used the word humbug other than Ebenezer Scrooge. I've never heard of it before other than Ebenezer Scrooge in the Christmas Carol, right? But here he is. He says, "This is humbug." What does that mean? It means this is useless. This is wasteful. This is humbug for us to be praying as we're praying and waiting as we're waiting if we're not rightly related to God. And then the young boy began to quote from Psalm chapter 24, "Who shall stand in the holy place? Who shall ascend into the hill of God? Who shall stand in his holy place? He that hath clean hands and a pure heart, who hath not lifted up his soul unto vanity, he shall receive the blessing of the Lord." And the young man fell to his knees, and he said, and he raised his hands toward heaven. He says, "Oh God, are my hands clean? Is my heart pure?" And as the story is told by Duncan Campbell, it's said that as he fell to his knees, that's when God shook the island of Lewis. Now, I'm sure he meant figuratively, not literally. But that is something that sparked a change in what was about to happen and occur on the island of Lewis. Well, as I said, that Mr. Campbell had said earlier, "I can't come." And then it turned out that the meeting over on Sky Island was canceled. And so he was able to get a quick message over to the people and said, it turns out I am free after all to be there. And so he arrives at the dock. And the men of the church greeted him and asked him, this is an interesting thing. Do you walk with God? They wanted to know before he made himself comfortable to stay. Do you walk with God? Duncan Campbell said, "Well, I'm a God-fearing man, and I fear God." And they said, "That will do just fine." And they were going to take him to the manse to feed him. It's late at night. It's actually almost 9 o'clock. But there were people assembled at the church at 9 o'clock for prayer. So they asked him, "Would you come to the church and pray first, and then we'll take you to the manse?" We're going to have to stop here, but tomorrow we're going to find that something happens that night at the church that really was amazing. I hope you'll join us tomorrow then at the Corner of Truth and Courage. God bless you.